This is AE Best Practices, a 12-part series where I break down the 12 fundamental elements needed to become a top AE. This is part 9, running calls with 4 or more people. I think it's important to treat this as a skill in itself because these are the big moments. If you want to close big deals with big companies, you're going to have to be in situations where you're controlling the narrative and delivering value to a room with multiple people on it. If you're selling to a big company, the decision-making parties are going to be 8, 12, 15 people. And so there will be situations where you need to take control of a larger room. It's important to keep in mind that it's easy to lose control in these situations. With lots of different people, lots of different opinions, perspectives, personalities, roles, it's very easy to lose control of the narrative when there's more people involved. But on the other hand, if you're able to demonstrate seamlessly that you can control that narrative and run a really effective call with lots of people on there, it demonstrates you're a high performer and it showcases that you're the right kind of company that they should want to be working with. When I'm going into a week where I've got a call coming up with, again, 4 or more people in it, I'm making sure that I'm preparing really extensively, especially with the help of my champion. Then once I'm prepared and I'm on the call, I find it's more important to take additional control of the agenda and the conversation as it flows. So being a little bit more controlling, for lack of a better phrase, to make sure that you're directing the conversation and keeping it on track as much as possible. If you've got 10 people joining, not all of them are going to be equal. Some of them might be in the C-suite, some might be more end users. And so it's important you know who is who, and then you address certain key stakeholders at certain moments to encourage their input, but also to make sure that any concerns or thoughts or questions to them are aired, which are obviously going to be the more important ones. So ahead of the call, I'll make sure that I'm mapping out with my champion exactly who's going to be joining, what their priorities are, what they're going to care about, and anything key that they feel I need to know ahead of that call. Make sure that before the call, you've already got a follow-up call with your champion shortly after, either the same day or the next day with your champion, so you can debrief and kind of get some real-time honest feedback from somebody who's kind of on your side. And be sure to sell as a team. If there's lots of people joining from their side, it definitely makes sense to even up the numbers and bring at least your manager, maybe someone technical, and maybe even someone from your senior leadership team to demonstrate that you're taking that call seriously, but also just to help with the dynamic of the call. Ahead of time, make sure you send a well-timed, thoughtful but concise introduction to introduce the key kind of concepts, whether it's showcasing a key bullet point of your understanding up to that point, or potentially even a video to boil down some of the key concepts that you've established up to that point, but making sure that you're introducing yourself and familiarizing yourself with the audience ahead of the call. So now into the call itself, I find it's really important to take the reins. Make sure that your intro is tight, have a really clear upfront contract. There's often going to be people joining late in that situation, and it's important not to let that throw things off. So come to a consensus that, okay, we're still waiting for 1 or 2 more people to be joining, but should we get the ball rolling and I can loop them in once they join? Sounds great. Cool, let's get into it. So don't allow that kind of 5 or 6 or 7 minutes of just people coming in and out to throw off the kind of nice, concise start to the call. One of the biggest ways to waste time in this moment is to get everybody to introduce themselves. So I avoid that at all costs. I demonstrate that I've understood each of their roles. So I'll say, hey, I noticed that we've got these 2 people from marketing, including the CMO. These 2 people have joined from business development, and then we've got the 3 others from the customer success function. So I've got a good understanding of your roles, but for today, I'd really like to go a little bit deeper and making sure that I understand exactly what you're going to care about and anything that's really top of mind. This can be a good time to demonstrate your championship, to say, hey, I've been collaborating with Maria, who's really helped me understand the landscape of your guys' company and helped me prepare extensively for this call today. It can be a nice thing to also caveat the fact that there are lots of people on the call and that usually I would like to go a little bit deeper with each of you and really understand things in lots of detail. But today we might have to keep a little bit surface level just with all the different broad roles that are on the call and obviously with time in mind. Once you've done this scene setting and you've kind of run through the meeting hygiene, I then find it's super important to then lead a really targeted discovery. So again, you should have a good idea of who the key stakeholders are on the call and the kinds of things that you're going to want to be understanding. So direct a question specifically at them. Use their name and mention the fact that, of course, you're aware that they lead the team. And so you'd love to learn, are you aware of these challenges or what's really top of mind for you? Just, opening up the question in a kind of targeted way with the right people to begin that kind of productive and targeted conversation to get some initial discovery done early in the call. Depending on what the purpose of the call is, you may want to be spending 5-10 minutes on discovery, or it might be an extensive one. But in any case, once you've understood the key information from a team, it's important to be conscious of other people's time. And so confirm back to them to summarize, to say, hey, great, really appreciate the insight here. My understanding is this, this, and this. Is that right? Fantastic. With time in mind, what I'm going to do is move on to the customer success function to make sure I get an understanding. But I really appreciate that. I'll be sure to show that later in the call, and then move on to the next part of the call. So you're kind of really directing it, taking the reins and kind of compartmentalizing the conversation to avoid it starting getting messy and having people chiming in from different teams and then throwing off the rhythm of the call. Sometimes on big calls like this, people can kind of fly a little bit under the radar for whatever reason. Sometimes people don't want to contribute in that environment, or maybe they just don't get the opportunity to talk. Sometimes senior leaders want their team to do more of the talking so they don't feel like they're imposing. So it's important to be conscious of these different things and bring specific people into the conversation when needed. So especially if it's someone senior, it's important to weigh in and say, hey, Michael, I haven't heard from you and I know that you're important on this side of things is really important. What are your thoughts on this? Or if it's somebody who's more of an end user, you can encourage them to speak and say, hey, from an end user perspective, is this the kind of thing you could see bringing value in your day, or whatever it might be? But in any case, be aware of who hasn't contributed, and generally the more the merrier. If you can get more people's opinions out there, it enables you to, first of all, address any concerns that might be lingering, or just get positive feedback and positive reinforcement that the ideas that you're talking about are positive ones. So then after the call, obviously, hopefully you'll be doing a nice summary, setting a couple of clear next steps with different individuals off the back of that call. But then soon after that, what I'd always like to do is just message my champion. How do you feel it went? Quick conversation, quick little line. Ideally, if I can phone them, then I will do as well. But just get some initial pulse read on the feeling, because sometimes it can be difficult to judge exactly how it's gone, especially as you're having to be quite present leading the call. So just try and get some initial feedback straight away off the back of that session. So in summary, I aim to prepare really extensively ahead of big calls with lots of people joining, especially with the help of a champion. In calls where there's 4 or more people, I aim to take extra control of the reins and direct the conversation in a really strategic and targeted way to make sure that you stay on track and you make a good use of everybody's time. And I always aim to have a really clear understanding of the key stakeholders and address them by name throughout the conversation, to making sure that you're bringing the right people into the conversation and making the best use of the fact that they're there on the call with you. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn for what's a really important topic, using MEDPIC as a map throughout your deals.